who have joined us online. And very good afternoon to respected Dr. Sanjay Mishra, sir, the resource person for today's meet, where we are going to discuss about open educational resources, its importance, and specifically in terms of technical education, and with relevance and roles of AICTE into making its availability of open educational resources. So just to begin the program, I would request Director Faculty Development Cell at AICTE, Dr. Amit Kumar Srivastava, sir, for the welcome address, please.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tiwari. It's my great honor and privilege to welcome Dr. Sanjay Mishra, Director Education at Commonwealth of Learning, British Columbia, Canada, along with the participants from head of institutions, directors, principals, faculty members, and students who are part of this today discussion on open educational resources, participating from different institutions across India and the world also. So we welcome all of you in today's discussion talk on the open educational resources by the eminent academicians, Dr. Sanjay Mishra sir. In brief, Dr. Mishra is one of the leading scholars in open, distance, and online learning with extensive experience in teaching, staff development, research, policy development, innovation, and organizational development. With a multidisciplinary background in education, information science, communication, media, and learning and development, Dr. Mishra has been promoting the use of educational multimedia, e-learning, open education resources, and open access to scientific information to increase access to quality education and lifelong learning for all. He has designed and developed award-winning online courses and platforms such as the Understanding Open Educational Resources, Commonwealth Digital Education Leadership Training in Action, and Callcomers. He has written and edited over 300 publications in the form of the books, chapters, peer-reviewed journals, papers, conference presentation, book review, and distance learning materials. While at UNESCO as a program specialist ICT in education, science, and culture, he facilitated an adoption of strategy and policy for open access to scientific information and research. Dr. Mishra serves on the editorial board of several peer-reviewed journals in the field of distance and online learning. He served as a board member of Network Digital Library of Thesis and Dissertations from 21 to 22. So with this, we again, on behalf of the AICT, we again welcome Dr. Sanjay Mishra sir in the today interactions on the open educational resources.
Yes, thank you, sir, for letting us know about the great learned personality who is amongst us, Dr. Sanjay Mishra, sir. Really a proud moment for us and the academicians as well. A great privilege and opportunity for all of us to listen to Dr. Mishra and to the importance of OER, Open Educational Resources. I would just add to it is a subsidiary body of, he is a Director Education at Commonwealth of Learning, a subsidiary body of Commonwealth of Nations. So, okay. So, sir would in fact let us know. So I would now request Dr. Sanjay Mishra sir to kindly present onto OER, please, and let us know about himself and his organization also. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and greetings to everyone on the live program here at AICTE and from around the country. Thank you for joining in. At the outset, I would like to thank Dr. Amit Srivastava and the leaders at AICTE for giving me this opportunity to talk about open educational resources in India. And I'm very appreciative of several new initiatives that the All India Council for Technical Education has taken in the recent time. And it was one such moment on the social media that I and Amit started interacting, and this meeting happened because of such an interaction. And I'm looking forward to listening to other people today, if we have time for some interaction. I understand Dr. Srivastava has made a tight schedule today for me to interact with some of the officials, senior officials here as well. But I will try to make it a short presentation so that if there is a possibility of interaction or asking questions from the field, we can take it up there. So just a little bit about my own organization, the Commonwealth of Learning. It is an intergovernmental organization established by the Commonwealth heads of government. It is one of the three intergovernmental agencies in the Commonwealth. And we are the only one which is not in London. We are based in Vancouver, British Columbia in Canada. Our main objective when the Commonwealth heads of government established call in 1987, their objective was that this organization should help Commonwealth governments and institutions use technologies to improve and expand access to education and training. And primarily at that time, it was distance learning, which is now online learning and distance and online learning and new forms of teaching and learning, blended learning, and so many new developments have come in this field. And these are the area that we work on. Over the years, CALL has made transformation to make it relevant to the current contemporary needs of the Commonwealth countries and Commonwealth educational institutions. And currently, our strategic plan 2021-2027 focuses on learning for sustainable development, where we believe that education should lead to economic empowerment, social inclusion, and environmental conservation. And within that, we have different initiatives and programs such as open schooling for secondary education, teacher education, higher education, technical vocational education and training, lifelong learning for farmers. Gender and technology enabled learning are more kind of cross-cutting activities for us at the government. So we undertake several activities in terms of building capacities of teachers in educational institutions and capacities of policymakers. So we do various things, and open educational resources is one of the key area of our work. In my presentation today, I'm going to focus on three key areas. First is context. Let me briefly provide you the context of so what is the real context at this stage? We're all working towards achieving sustainable development goals, the 17 sustainable development goals. And the goal 4 is about ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. This is where all governments are working on. This is the key focus for everyone at this moment. And in India, in order to achieve, the national development goals, priorities, and also to achieve the global priorities of Sustainable Development Goal 4, Government of India has launched this National Education Policy 2020. And it has some path-breaking ideas that needs to be put in action. And the most important point that I feel is that making gross enrollment ratio in higher education up to 50% by 2035. It also has focus on national NEFT for educational technology, promote digital education. It also talks about using digital repositories for content creation and dissemination, something that AICTE has also initiated. Promote blended learning at all levels, including technical education, and setting standards for content, technology, and pedagogy for online. These are some of the ideas that are present in the National Education Policy, and this needs to be made more action oriented. So those are our context we are looking at. I want to present some interesting statistics that I have compiled from different sources. That India is one of the largest higher education systems in the world. with over 1,000 universities, over 42,000 training colleges, and about 11,000 standalone institutions, and it has about 8,900 technical institutions. The statistics might change. This is based on what I got on the internet. But AICT and colleagues may be knowing much better and realistic statistics on this. And in terms of student enrollment, India has about 38.5 million students in higher education. It's next to China, which is 44.3 million. And USA is having about 19 million students. And current gross enrollment ratio in India is about 29%, which is much lower than other countries or developed countries. Our aspiration to 50% is something, a bigger plan, and needs bold steps for the policymakers and authorities to make that plan achievable. A rough estimate would say that in order to achieve that, probably there is need for at least every day you need to probably create 1 or 2 face-to-face institutions, and that's probably the resources for those things are not available. So what is more important is to look at alternative approaches such as open distance online learning, for which the University Grants Commission has already set up policies and guidelines to be used. But it also needs to be looked at how technical education can be enhanced through those modes, and also how blended learning can be used in technical colleges to improve quality of teaching and learning that happens on campus. One of the biggest challenge is about cost of education in India. A study sometime back in 2015 by Economist Intelligence Group talked about that in India, a degree education cost about 500 times of average income of an India, which is quite high in terms of other countries that we look at. But things have changed drastically. I just wanted to highlight the biggest challenge about access to education, technical education or general higher education is hugely dependent on the cost of education. And this is the latest government data available to us based on the household survey by the National Statistical Organization. What it talks about that a 1 year of technical education costs on average 50,000 Indian rupees, and 1 year of general education costs about 8,000 Indian rupees. That's the cost of higher education in India. And how much textbook cost the students spend? Where are the costs going? The 76% of the cost they spend goes to course fees they pay. Textbook cost is about 9%. And this is specific to engineering. The general education cost is different. The students spend about 9%. The total annual expenditure is about 10 billion US dollars on students spend on their education. Nearly about 1 billion US dollars are spent on textbooks. This is the below textbook cost is in crores. So that is the estimated cost based on the number of students in tertiary technical tertiary education. This is not this is calculated on the basis of the NSSO data. So it's not very scientifically calculated, but this is to give you an indication about how much money students are spending on buying textbooks alone. And therefore, it is very important that we need to provide open educational resources to mitigate this issue, and this money can be used by students on different for their own well-being and their own benefit for other expenditures. So in that context, what I really found is that the AICT's initiative of curriculum aligned content in Indian languages are a very appreciable and laudable initiative, which will probably support these kind of financial challenges and the cost that students incur in going into engineering degrees and programs. So my job here to advocate for open educational resources. And what are open educational resources and when it started? The open educational resources are those teaching and learning resource materials which are either available in public domain or are issued with an open license. Open license, we'll talk about those things little later. Public domain is about something that in legal terms talk about materials that are having copyright expired and or the author has relinquished the rights to the public. That's one category of open educational resources. And the other one, which are copyrighted, but there is a license to use in a specific way. And those license to use are called open licenses specifically. Where and if those things are there, then these teaching learning materials are open educational resources. Well, it all started in 2001. The MIT Open Courseware was the beginning of this open educational resource movement. Because of those things, the UNESCO called a expert meeting in 2002, and they coined the term open educational resources in 2002. After that, there are several declarations and developments. There was a very important declaration of Cape Town Declaration on Open Education in 2007. In 2012, UNESCO and Commonwealth of Learning organized the first UNESCO OER Congress, where the OER Paris Declaration was adopted, where the call was for all publicly funded educational materials should be available with an open license. In 2012, the Commonwealth Education Ministers adopted recommended OER. The Qingdao Declaration in 2015 talked about that. In 2016's Commonwealth of Learning Scale Declaration talked about that. In 2017, the Second World OER Congress happened, where again it was reiterated. And in 2019, UNESCO General Conference adopted the OER recommendation. All the UNESCO member states agreed to the set of recommendation on OER. One of the key recommendations is that every government will make efforts to develop policies and strategies to make teaching and learning materials available with public funds with an open license. That was the kind of agreement. Of course, the recommendations are recommendations. They are not mandatory like declarations that every country has to do. So OER recommendation talks about those things. And since Government of India is a party to those declarations, it is expected that everything that is done with the public fund in India should be available with an open license. I talked about this thing, so quickly I will proceed to the next slide. Incheon Declaration, Qingdao Declaration, where all those things were talked about. What is the UNESCO OER recommendation? There are 5 key action points on that. Building capacity of stakeholders, teachers, policymakers, students to create, access, use, adopt, and redistribute open educational resources. Developing supportive policy both at national level and at institutional level. Encourage inclusive and equitable quality of open educational resources. Nurturing and creation of sustainable models for open educational resources, and facilitating international cooperation in creation and use of open educational resources. These are the 5 key elements of the OER recommendations that the member states of UNESCO adopted in 2019. In fact, by 2023, all governments will be reporting on what they did. India has a very special place on the movement of open educational resources. I want to remind people about that. In 2007, the National Knowledge Commission actually talked about open educational resources. Whereas there was a special report on open access and open educational resources by National Knowledge Commission at that time. And then In 2007, the NPTEL, National Program on Technology Enhanced Learning, was started initially with 7 IITs and Indian Institute of Science. Then in 2009, National Mission on Education through Information and Communication Technology was adopted, and many of these materials later on become open educational resources, particularly because in 2014, the Program Advisory Board of NME ICT adopted the CCBY SA license for all NME ICT funded material. And therefore, InfluNet has EPG Pathshala. There are many universities in India, particularly most of the open universities have OER policy. And in SWAYAM, India's book platform, when the strategy paper, the ministry strategy papers also talks about at one section that suitably in consultation with international organization, the learning materials of SWAYAM will also be released as open educational resources. There is an inherent commitment to release SWAYAM materials also as OER in the government documents. So some of these things are very well, and India's position as a content provider to the world is well established, particularly because of the initiatives of AI, of NPTEL and InfluNet and other initiatives. And with now eKumbu coming, probably that's going to add a totally new dimension to release of materials on STEM subjects and at a degree level, which is something very unique things that this project is doing. So OER is all about teaching learning materials either with public domain or with an open license. What is open license? Let me emphasize on this part. What is an open license? The open license allows 5 things to happen. If a material is released with an open license, it allows somebody to reuse, copy verbatim, use it, revise it, adapt and edit it, remix it by taking several different resources, combine it and create something else. In the music industry, remix is a very important word. But in learning materials, also when we prepare learning materials, we do not depend on one document, we depend on many. Remix here also is very important. If you are releasing something on OER, you are able to redistribute it without any permission from the copyright, anyone who has done it. And you also retain and take control of the new version that you have created. So what it does is that in any material that is developed is copyrighted. So when you are doing something with that, you need permission of the copyright holder. With open educational resources, no permission is required as long as the open license is respected. So there are the most common licensing regime used is the Creative Commons licensing, which is very well accepted by lawyers around the world. And there are 6 different types of licenses. They are based on 4 concepts, which is called attribution, share alike, non-commercial, and non-derivative. They are mostly self-explanatory. Attribution means that you must give credits to the author or the publisher or who published the material. That means if you see all the license has CC BY is attribution, meaning that if you copy somebody else's work and do not attribute the author, you have already violated the licensing. So the copyright owner will say, oh, you used my licensed material, but you did not respect the material. So you have breached of my license. So CC BY is a must. That's the basic thing. Share alike, that means if I reuse somebody else's material available with the share alike license, anything that I recreate also has to be released as CC BY. Not commercial, you cannot sell the materials for profit purpose. Non-derivative are materials where you can use it, you can share it, but you cannot modify anything with that. So it's become non-derivative. In the field of OER, non-derivative licenses are not considered OER materials because you are not able to repurpose that. No, you are able to share it. It's still a good material. It is sometimes good for ages use. That in adoption purpose, that you have a CC BY ND material, and you can really adopt that because there is no need for any change for that material in your classroom teaching. So you can do that, but that is not OER because nobody can make any change to those materials. The other 4 licenses are OER, including the public domain materials are open educational resources. During the COVID, we had done a survey and we find that there are over 50% increase in use of open educational resources. And particularly in the secondary school level, many students were dependent on open educational resources. Many teachers curated those resources available in various repositories and shared with their students on their own initiative. This report is available on our website. Those who are interested can visit our website called oasis.col.org. So what is that I'm trying to suggest and promote is that India, the imperative for India is expansion, equity, and excellence. We need to expand higher education to reach gross enrollment ratio of 50% by 2035. At the same time, we need to provide equity in education. There is a balance, gender parity. There is a focus on supporting persons with disabilities and also reaching to remote areas. Students should not be traveling long distances to achieve higher education and particularly technical education. And the third pillar is excellence. We need to develop global world-class universities, and therefore quality is very much important. How can we do that? We probably, there are many ways to do it, and one of the ways is to focus on appropriate policies, capacities, technology, and funding support for open educational resources. And this is what I call enablers for making India's higher education world class. So policy development at Commonwealth of Learning, we have supported many countries and institutions to develop policy. There is a document called Guidelines on the Development of Open Educational Resources Policies developed with UNESCO in order to support the adoption of UNESCO OER recommendation 2019. This will be of use. I personally have done some research on promoting use of open educational resources in the Indian context, and I find this is a complex environment, and it delves from poor attitude about OER to look at quality of open educational resources, lack of skills, and lack of support structure. Intrinsic motivation or extrinsic motivation, those issues are also involved. So what is the way forward? How can we mainstream open educational resources in Indian conditions? There is a need for improving ICT skills, looking at the work and load of teachers, helping teachers to understand about OER, helping teachers to understand the quality of open educational resources. How can they adopt existing resources? How can they use it? How can decide the fit for purpose? What is the fit for purpose? How can they trust the resources? What is trustworthy resources? For example, when a material is stamped by AICTE, this is always trustworthy. Nobody is going to question. But if anybody is preparing any open educational resources, people will always have that question mark. But if we teach them, how can they decide that? How can they look at this is a trustworthy resource? So we teach them those kind of things. Then they are empowered, they are knowledgeable, skilled to use OER. Their attitude towards OER improves. We did this study in 4 different universities in India in 2018, 2017, 18, and we found that most teachers are very positive about that. There is concern about quality, but they are very positive about if things are available with an open license. They were more and more use about these resources. I want to highlight few things here to help others to understand. 8 availability of open educational resources worldwide. There are a lot of open educational resources and global government supported and philanthropic supported resources available. For example, the screen that you are seeing now is a British Columbia open textbook project supported by the government. And you can see several learning resources available there on different disciplines that one can make use of those resources. You can download those resources. They are all mostly available with the CC BY license, which is the most open license used. There is another example called OpenStars from Rice University. These are mostly science and science courses available there. And these are graduate level courses that can also be reused for teaching, learning, and learning purpose. There is also one in Canada called eCampus Ontario. They have large number of resources. They actually develop courses on and that can be adapted by teachers. They're all open educational resources. There is another platform called skillscommons.org. This is broadly technical education courses. Thousands of learning assets are available on OER, on animation, on PowerPoint, question banks, and so on. So these can be utilized for teaching and learning. These are all open educational resources. These are not our resources. I'm just sharing from other sources. There is also one called liberatetext. You can search about this. They also have large number of courses, around 400 courses available on different subjects, including social sciences, of course. So there are a large number of websites and resources available. At Commonwealth of Learning, we have also several platforms. One of the new platforms is about Callcomers.org, which is a short micro course platform for teachers and education subjects. We are trying to include other subjects here. All the courses here are for about 2 hours to 5 hours. These are video, text, quizzes, assessments are there. People can learn. They are all freely available, openly licensed resources. We have also resources on assuring quality of open educational resources. There are guidelines. Those can be reviewed and adapted to specific situations. This is not a prescriptive document. These are guidelines that any institution can look at and how quality of open educational resources can be assured. We can look at. I normally recommend these 5 steps for every institution and every country to look at. Adopt national and institutional policies for open educational resources. Commit all resources developed are available as open educational resources. Provide adequate funding for OER, especially in local language. Support capacity of users to understand open educational resources. And of course, advocate for OER for sustainable development, because we need to promote a sustainable world in whatever field of work that we are doing. With that, I would like to thank everyone and stop here.
Thank you very much, respected sir, for very concise and letting us know everything about OER in a very short span of time. And I'm also, what I could infer from all that you explained is exactly that OER's objectives are very noble. As you in the very beginning have said, that the objective is, one of the objectives is to mitigate the cost of educational learning. So in countries like India and several other Asian countries, developing countries, undoubtedly, if the objective with which and the pace with which this is working shall certainly prove boon to the education seekers. So great to hear from you, sir. We are now open for the question answer session. Those having joined us online can raise their hands or can also put their queries into the chat box so that we can unmute you and can interact for replying to your query from this great learned personality we have with us, Dr. Sanjay Mishra.
Yeah, thank you, Tiwari. Ms. Rupa, any query? Just unmute yourself and Yeah, Rupa, any query? Megha Mathur, any query, ma'am? Vires, any query? Vires, Mr. Vires or Rupa, there are 3 hands raised. Praveen, yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, please.
Hello. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, madam.
So this is Vandana Khandelwal from MIT Academy of Engineering, Alandi, Pune. So
Yeah.
my question is that, sir, what is the role of librarian in providing open educational resources to the faculty members and students?
To Dr. Mishra, sir.
This is a very, thank you very much for asking this question. Library is very close to my heart. And in fact, librarians have a huge role. I think way back in 2013, there was a conference here on digital libraries, and I conducted a workshop for librarians on
Okay.
OER for librarians. And no, librarians are actually not only just custodians of knowledge resources, but they are promoters of use of learning resources. Now,
Right, sir. Right.
if you are a library professional, you know about Ranganathan's 5 laws of library science. You can very much apply the same thing to open educational resources. In fact, in a couple of, I think 2 years back, there was a group of scholars in the US. They have written an article on 5 laws of library science application on open educational resources. I would recommend you to search that document on Google and read about those things so that that you will get more clarity about what is that the new world is talking about. Thank you very much for asking.
Thank you so much for, sir, answering my question. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, any other query from the participant? Just unmute your mic and you can raise your questions. Any other query from the participant?
We can see Praveen Sihag.
Mr. Praveen, any query?
Praveen Sihag.
Or Vires, Mr. Vires?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay, okay. Yeah, Mr. Vires. Professor N.K. Yadav.
Right, sir. Good evening, sir.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, Mr. Sir, the point is coming that when we are applying this OERs, certainly it is a financial supportive or a less education expenditure. But how will you make at par of as a regular classes efficiency measurement?
Open educational resources can be used in your classroom. It can be used in online education, distance education. So it's not, I really don't see any challenge about at par in this context. These are like textbooks or any teaching and learning materials that we are providing. Everything is copyrighted. What we are advocating is that if the creator or an author makes those learning materials available with an open license, anyone can make reuse of those materials without asking permission, and others can improvise the material, use something existingly available, use that material to create something else, create video, add to that, and those and increase the quality of the resources if you make the resources available on OER. So I don't see any challenge about the question of at par in this context. If you are asking about ODL or online, then the question of at par might come, but that would need a longer discussion to explain.
So there is a one query in the chat box: how to ensure the credibility of the open resources?
That's a very good question. In one of the slides, I talked about the OER quality assurance guidelines for open educational resources. So in order to ensure quality of those things, there are certain guidelines available you can look at. But the basic thing I would like to also emphasize that it's not more different than any other textbook. So when you recommend to your student a textbook from the market, how do you decide that this textbook is good quality? It's the same quality criteria that you apply for any other openly licensed material. So that should not be two different quality. The only thing that we emphasize that when you are preparing open learning materials as open licensed on OER material, then what kind of licenses you are doing? Whether you are making it accessible to persons with disabilities or not, on some of those kind of technicalities that we recommend, but the assuring the quality is dependent on the provider. So if you are a teacher, you are providing the quality of in your classroom. What is the transaction happens? Nobody knows that quality. Nobody is assuring that quality of teaching learning transaction. You teach a textbook. You decide which textbook to be used, and so same quality you can use for open educational resources. But you can take help of existing guidelines and resources that are available. There are many guidelines. We have developed one guideline, and there are others also.
Any other query from the participant? How important is the role of one query? How important is the role of EduTech in the OER ecosystem?
This is, thank you very much for asking this. This is, I think, very significant. Educational technology plays a significant role. Anything could be OER. A printed textbook can be OER. Whether digital, not digital is not important. But if it is digital, in today's world, it's important that OERs are digital so that they are available in multiple devices. They are available in multiple formats, like in EPUB formats, in PDF, in Word file, so that you can contextualize those materials. So education technology is very important. And if you're talking about app-based delivery or any other ways of looking at things, you are looking at open access repositories. So EduTech there is a range of technologies. It's very important to focus on that.
Thank you, sir. So I think most of the queries raised by the participant has been answered by Dr. Mishra. So now,
yes. Thank you, sir. I hope all queries have been resolved to the satisfaction.
May I speak, sir? May I
yeah.
speak?
Yeah, please, Dr. Ashok. Yeah.
Good evening, sir. Sir, you are talking about advantages, but I am just asking you another end that, sir, is it in future it will be a threat to our educators? Is it right? In future, it will be threatened, one kind of threat to the educators. Am I right?
I don't agree to that. There is no threat to human beings. In even for example, I'll extend your thoughts to take it to the current discussion of AI and other technologies. Okay. Yes, there might be challenges for some of the new technologies, not OER. Some of the new technologies like AI, robotics, and others, there might be challenges in short term for employability and other things because of automation and mechanization. But nobody can replace human being teachers. It's only a matter of adaptation to things and technology. And for OER, I don't see any threat. I have been doing OER since 2007, 6, 7. I don't see that threat anywhere around the world.
It is just like a baby now. That is what I think we are not realizing this state, but never will come to them after 10 years, 15 years.
Yeah, Dr. Ashok, we will discuss this subsequently because most of the things had been focused upon the OER today itself. So
we need to know what is the threat. I am really interested. Please send me an email with your ideas so that I can think about that. Thank you.
So if you permit, can I add one line on the same query with your kind consent?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Sir, as you have certainly allowed the individual to even seek, personally can raise the concerns what he is saying. But I believe any creation comes not from the machine but from the human brain. That's a simple thing. I believe. I think everyone believes into. So undoubtedly, any creation, whatsoever the machines, the softwares, they are all designed by us. It is not that the softwares are designing the human beings. So ultimately, to the extent we should see OER just as a source of learning and research material. I believe, sir, you can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's the point. It's like it's the same material. Now, for example,
Just like a textbook.
in e-Kumba, you have creating those textbooks. Okay.
Yeah.
But I am pleading that all e-Kumba material should be OER.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So we have taken enough number of queries and are just running out of time that was scheduled for this specific program. So just to extend our thanks and gratitude, I would request my colleague, Dr. Sanjay Das, to present vote of thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Tiwari. In fact, it is a highly enriching session today and very interesting. Dr. Sanjay Mishra, Director of Education, Commonwealth. So you have very lucidly brought forward what exactly OER from the bottomest detail, and you have come to that point, what scope that OER having in our country and as well across other nations also, and what benefits it can bring forth. So we are highly grateful to you, sir, on behalf of AICT, to express our heartfelt gratitude to all come across to our place and deliver such an important lecture for this day and enlightened us. Thank you very much. And I also express my heartfelt gratitude to all the viewers today who have joined us online to patiently listen to the details